of Falcon 9 were small but extremely meaningful to meet NASA's requirements for safety for human spaceflight. And specifically, SpaceX had to prove a high degree of fault tolerance, meaning that small failures in the system would not lead to mission failure. Falcon 9 was already able to handle engine failure, but new emphasis was put on making sure that a failure throughout any phase of launch would not mean mission failure. And that's a really cool view on your screen with Bob and Doug getting out of their Teslas. That is amazing.
Score on countdown T-minus 2
and
hours, 58
this
minutes.
goes down
Crew has
all the
arrived
way
at pad
to
on schedule.
latches, control valves, electronics, and wiring, and so much more to keep them safe.
All right, well, with the astronauts now on location at Pad 39A, Marie, Lauren, Leland, take us through the crew making their final steps towards that Dragon spacecraft.
All right, thanks, Dan. That was really cool to see. We can see the Teslas on the screen there. They're going to stop for Bob and Doug to take a little nature break before they make their way up to the pad. And we're expecting it should be about T-minus 2 hours and 55 minutes, so just under 3 minutes from now, we should hear a formal announcement on the loops that the crew is on the pad. So we'll quiet down to listen for that when we get a little closer. But Lauren, you didn't get a chance to mention while they were driving out there, they have a very cool playlist they had on the way out, right?
Yeah, I remember Bob tweeting, "What should I listen to on the way out?" So here's what they chose. The first is AC/DC's "Back in Black." I think he actually tweeted that one, or someone recommended it, which is super cool. And the reason being, they are back. Then they also listened to the elevator music from the Blues Brothers film, that song "Girl from Ipanema." And
that one?
I
Sing it,
believe
Leland.
so,
I just
yeah.
wanna listen to Leland sing.
Got another career.
Hey.
That and meatball loving. But the sort of symbolizing the fact that they're waiting. And the third song was the Star Spangled Banner, the Army French horns version, for very obvious reasons, that one.
Yeah, you got to set the mood, set the tone, right, Leland? You know all about that.
Little meatball, you know, all good.
And
Don't make me come over there, Lauren.
so we're looking now at the Crew Dragon capsule on top of the Falcon 9 rocket, the impressive crew access arm. That's that black and white kind of hallway you see there. That's how the crew make their way over to Crew Dragon to climb inside. And that Falcon 9 rocket stands about 230 feet tall. The Crew Dragon trunk, from the bottom of the trunk to the top of the nose cone, that's another 27 feet on top of that. So here in just a couple of minutes, Bob and Doug are going to be making their way up in an elevator. They don't have to climb the whole way. It's just about 10 feet of stairs at the last leg of that trip. And lots of people are weighing in on social media. This person says it's happening, and I can't read the rest of it right now, but lots of people really getting pumped using the hashtag #LaunchAmerica online. Somebody says they're watching live now and wishing us a fantastic launch. We certainly hope so. Last we heard was a 50-50 chance with the weather, so it's going to be exciting. And it looks like, I'm not sure if that one is Bob or Doug in this one here. Can't tell from this view, but looks like one of them is getting ready to get out of the Tesla in just a minute.
Lauren, our suits our pumpkin suits had different colors for what mission position you had. Do these suits have colors to designate the two astronauts? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, but their names are on the suits.
Maybe that helps. Well, we had names too, but
Yeah.
but I mean, if you're trying to find out what suit that you have, you know, I guess it's only two of them, and it could be up to
Up to
7 astronauts, though, right?
Dragon is capable of carrying 7, but for NASA missions, it's 4.
It's just 4. Okay.
Yes.
There go those doors. I'm going to call them the DeLorean doors. Can I call them that?
Sure. I think that's totally fair game. Acknowledge the inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Again, we're looking at the base level there. And Leland, I know we talked about this. You know, you were out here last week and we were talking about how the pad looks so different from the shuttle days. Can you talk about what you remember and kind of how it's different now?
Yeah, I mean, the form and the function. I mean, this black pad with the white ticking, and you know, it's a really beautiful. You think about STEM education, but this is totally STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics. And I think, SpaceX has done an incredible job of making things look really beautiful and functional, and everything just fits perfectly. And I think, when we were having our launch pad, there were hoses and things hanging off, but this is a very sleek and elegant and kind of futuristic look at the next era of space travel. And, I just love seeing these Teslas versus the Astrovan. Are they doing selfies?
Looks like they're trying to strain to see the top of the Crew Dragon, just taking in the sight.
It's pretty high.
And I don't know if you caught this one. We could see it briefly on the shot, but the license plate says ISS BND, ISS bound.
Oh,
You
nice.
follow? Yeah.
Nice.
And hopefully they will be today. We just need the weather to say, it looks pretty nice right now, right? But obviously it's not just what the weather conditions are here. They've got to think about downrange in case of an abort, make sure it's okay for recovery if we get into a situation like that, which is unlikely.
So this elevator is going to take them up to level 255. It's not 255 floors, but that's 255 feet. And from there, they'll once they get up there, and this elevator is pretty zippy, so they'll get up there pretty quickly, they'll get out, and they'll walk up another flight of stairs to level 265, and that's where they will greet the crew arm.
And I don't know, well, obviously Leland's been in the elevator. Lauren, I'm pretty sure you've been out there too, but the first time I rode in the elevator, I was like, whoa, we're really moving in this.
Pull some G's.
A little bit of a jolt when it first goes.
Yeah, you get used to it. And then the jolt is a little bit more extreme when you get in the rocket and take off.
Just a little.
Just a little primer. It's a primer.
The doors are opening. And here they come.
It's a beautiful view up there too of the, all of the surroundings in Florida and this national wildlife retreat that we have here. But getting ready for the business at hand of getting in the rocket and heading to the cosmos.
And those are the stairs Lauren mentioned. They're at it's the 255-foot level right now.
Yes.
I think I said that right. And now they're headed up the stairs to the 265-foot level. That's a level that will take them to where the crew access arm is in the white room.
Yeah, that's the view right there that they're looking at. And Lauren, what are those chevrons, those white chevrons on the floor? What do they lead to?
Those are basically highlighting the exit path. So in the event that that anyone up there needed to get away ASAP, they follow those arrows to where escape baskets await them. There's 7 baskets, and they'll hop in there, and it's kind of like a zip line. They'll slide all the way down from that fixed service structure down to the ground, safe and away from the rocket.
Great.
And at the top right of your screen where you see them, there's actually a phone right up there next to the worm. There's the worm again, Leland. But there's
I'm okay
a phone.
with that. I'm okay with that now.
Okay.
It really pops up there.
Yeah, it's like it belongs there or something.
It's funny, isn't it? Leland, tell us about the phone. What's the significance of the phone up there?
Yeah, you can call family members that you maybe weren't able to come to the launch, and in this case, there are quite a few of them. But it's a last minute to say goodbye and say that you're going to talk to them when you get to space.
Absolutely. And again, they're just kind of taking in the sights before they go into the white room, and the pad team is there. You can see them. They're in black with the white numbers on their back. They're all members of the pad team. They're going to be helping them when they get into ingress. Actually, we're at T minus 2 hours and 50 minutes right now, at about T minus 2 hours and 35 minutes. So just under 15 minutes from now is when the astronauts will ingress. That's the term we use for climbing into Dragon. And of course, they will have the assistance of the suit techs and get buckled in. And so we want to head over to Hawthorne now for a preview of what's in store for not just Bob and Doug, but future space travelers.
Shortly after we begin to regularly fly NASA astronauts to and from the space station, SpaceX will also begin flying private passengers to station and beyond using Dragon.
That's right. NASA is going to be enabling up to 2 private astronaut missions to visit the space station each year, just as part of our support of a broader economy in low Earth orbit. It's just one of the many ways NASA's opening access for companies to manufacture products in microgravity, for new commercial modules in space, and to enable more people to be able to explore the stars firsthand.
And the more people out there exploring the stars, the closer we get to becoming a multiplanetary species. Earlier, we showed you a first-hand look at where you would train if you were to fly with us on board Dragon, but now let's take a peek inside of the spacecraft itself.
When we wanted to take Dragon and make it human-rated, I think we took a different approach to spaceship design than has previously been done, because we wanted this to feel like a 21st century spaceship. We wanted it to inspire another generation of astronauts. Really, everything when you look at Dragon was driven by function. We took into account everything from the placement of all the cargo supplies to the light rail on the top, doubled as a handhold. Probably one of the biggest features of Dragon are the touch screens on the inside. We designed them not just to be very functional, but with a user experience in mind. It's very intuitive to know what we need to do at any given moment in time. When I think about comfort for the astronauts, it's really every aspect of how you could interact with the spaceship that comes to mind. We have 3 different seat sizes. We even go so far as molding the foam around the astronaut's body so that there's not any pressure points, and it's just generally a pleasurable journey to space. Dragon is a spaceship that's all about safety and reliability. We designed it to be 2-fault tolerant, which means that any 2 things could fail. So I could lose a flight computer and a thruster, and I could still bring the crew back home safely. We also added a launch escape system. If anything goes wrong on ascent, the crew can get away from Falcon and get picked up safely. I've worked on Dragon since 2012. When I see Dragon lift off, I think I'm going to feel a buildup of emotion of 8 years of working with some of the best engineers and technicians across the country that put their heart and mind into making this incredible moment happen for everybody.
Ingress has started on schedule.
We see them signing, looks like they're signing something in there right now.
Yeah, we give them a black Sharpie to sign the white room. It's starting a new tradition.
Yeah, we didn't do that. That's nice.
That's
That's a
awesome.
good tradition.
Yeah.
And while we were in the video, we saw Bob and Doug walk down the crew access arm. Leland, it's like that, futuristic look that you talked about. I mean, what did you think seeing that and how that kind of compare and contrast what that was like during shuttle?
It's really beautiful, I think. I mean, back when I was flying on shuttle, everything looked. Oh, look at the thumbs up from Bob. He's getting excited. Just a few little photos at the end there, but it's just a totally different era. I mean, the SpaceX team is really looking to make something futuristic. It's looking like something from the George Jetsons or from other movies that you've seen on television and at the movies. And I think it's something that inspires our country and inspires our children especially to see that they want to be these astronauts. They want to study hard and be that next generation of explorers launching from Cape Canaveral in a SpaceX rocket, or working for NASA, or working for SpaceX, or any of the other companies that are trying to get off planet. And I think that this change in the way that we're doing business is going to be a really great way of getting more people to the table to fly in space.
Yeah, that was really important to us. Dragon, we see it as a 21st century spaceship. It needs to look like a 21st century spaceship. It flies like a 21st century spaceship. So of course, the ground support equipment should look like it's from the same era. The suits do. Mm-hmm. All of that sort of future-facing technology and aesthetic is super important to us. Actually, right now, you can see that duct in the hands of member number 5 there. That is an ECS duct, or Environmental Control System duct. Once this original, who just went in? Was that Doug or Bob?
I think that was Doug.
Okay. Doug
That was
just climbed
Doug,
in.
yep.
That is awesome.
He's ahead of schedule. Somebody tell him to climb back
They
out.
are booking. It is great.
He's ready. He's like Leland. We were joking earlier about it. We were going to have to buckle Leland into his seat here to keep him from running out there.
Yeah, if we had stayed outside, I was going to swim across the moat and run over and get in the vehicle with Bob and Doug.
All right, now Bob's going in.
Yeah.
This is great. So the suit technicians are helping the crew climb inside. They're holding back the hatch seals to protect the seals on the hatch, but also making sure that the crew doesn't hit their head or anything on the way in. Even though they have helmets, we still don't want that to happen.
And you know, they climbed in a couple minutes earlier than we expected them to, but you know, Lauren, that, you know, SpaceX has rehearsed this over and over and over again with Bob and Doug. And, you know, and I've heard them say, you know, well, we might be a little bit ahead of schedule if we're ready. It just gives them more time to check things out, you know?
Yeah. So right now what the crew, the suit technicians are doing is they're strapping the crew's feet into these restraints that the boots sit inside of. They're then going to close those 5-point harnesses around them. I know, Leland, you talked about some of the harnessing that you had in the past with the shuttle.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a more sleek design where there's one point to plug in to get cooling, communications, and everything. And, we had a 5-point harness. We, had these hoses and things all over the place. But I think this is a much more streamlined look into the future of space travel.
Yeah, and similar to what was going in the ONC building during the suit checkouts, that seat umbilical is going to connect to the right thigh of the spacesuit. There is a fluid module that is connected to the spacesuit, and that provides fresh cooling air and also nitrox for the leak checks that are going to come up later. But the audio system is also going through that umbilical.
Mm-hmm.
So while the crew is, or while the suit techs are getting the crew all buckled in, they're going to perform a comm check. And that's, again, similar to what was done at the ONC building, but this time the integrated two-way communications between the astronauts and the ground crew.
And we're going to head back to Hawthorne now, as we just saw Bob and Doug ingress Crew Dragon. Dan?
Hey, thanks. Yeah, it's incredible to see them inside the capsule. If you're just now tuning in, great timing. You're watching our coverage of the mission known as Demonstration Mission 2 or Demo 2. Today, SpaceX and NASA are going to be sending people into orbit on a mission to the International Space Station for the first time from U.S. soil since 2011. Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley are those astronauts flying in Dragon. They're inside. That's Doug Hurley really close to our screen and Bob Behnken on the further seat away from us.
And they are getting ready to lift off from pad 39A, where Falcon 9 will lift off around or at 4:33 p.m. Eastern Time. They already ascended the tall structure next to the rocket, which is called the fixed service structure, and walked down the corridor known as the crew arm. And now they're already boarded inside of Dragon.
Yeah, right before they got in, we did see them pause for a moment and actually sign the wall. They were in the White Room. And the White Room is just literally that room at the end of the crew arm that has an opening into Dragon. It's the last place on planet Earth where Bob and Doug are standing before they get into Dragon for their ride to the space station.
And the term the White Room was first used during NASA Gemini missions, where the room right before entering into the spaceship was painted white. So we've continued the tradition with painting ours white as well, and also started a new tradition. If you just saw, they did sign the White Room wall, which is really, really awesome. It's a fairly small area that has room for the crew and a few ground support members to complete cargo load at T-minus 24 hours and crew ingress at T-minus 2 hours and 35 minutes. And ingress is how we refer to the crew boarding Dragon.
And inside the White Room, there's also a movable platform that just gets extended out to the capsule just in order to bridge that gap between the crew arm and the Dragon side hatch, just allowing easy entry into Dragon. And as you might expect, the entire area is environmentally controlled just so the Dragon side hatch can be kept open while we're keeping all of that dust, dirt, Florida humidity out of the capsule, making sure it's pristine for the crew. There's also a big seal that's inflated and compressed against the capsule right now just to help maintain that clean environment.
The White Room also has lots of tools in order to open the side hatch, complete crew ingress as they're doing right now, and prepare for any contingency or emergency that may be encountered.
And so as we just heard from Lauren and Marie and the team, they're getting into this capsule now. They're getting their seats connected to their suits via that umbilical that's going to give them hardline connections into audio for their comm checks, which are going to be coming up shortly. And again, breathing gas and pressurized nitrox for those suit leak checks. So this will be the second time since getting suited up that they've done these leak checks. We're just kind of all about redundancy and constantly checking our systems as we continue to count down. But I mean, there they are. Right now, we're watching Bob and Doug getting into Dragon, getting strapped in. Before they connected their suits to the actual seats, they did something called a foreign object debris check, or a FOD check. And that just means that they actually get inspected for any substance or debris on their suit that could interfere with those systems on Dragon.
And to help protect against debris, the crew has covers on their boots as well as their umbilical port on their suits that need to be removed before they can ingress. So they've already removed those, and as you can see, they are getting strapped in. And once the FOD check is complete, our commander, Doug Hurley, entered first, and then Bob Behnken followed after him. And they're getting buckled in right now, as you can see on your screen, and attaching their umbilicals to their suits. The umbilicals allow the crew to have comms through their suit and air to help keep them cool, as well as delivers nitrox for suit pressurization. And as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the suit's primary function is to protect the crew in the event of a cabin depressurization.
And just walking through the interior a little bit, there are 4 seats configured inside Dragon right now. They're numbered 1 to 4 from right to left when you're looking at the seats. So we've had a couple of camera views just from the hatchway, so in the White Room. If you're looking at that angle, you go from 1 to 4 right to left. Doug Hurley is in seat 2, or the commander seat. Bob Behnken is in seat 3, which is on Crew Dragon is the pilot seat. And then obviously nobody is in seats 1 and 4 today. Crew Dragon is designed to carry 4 astronauts on these future NASA missions, and we met 2 of the Crew 1 members and heard about their other 2 crew members a little bit earlier. Directly in front of both of our crew members today are 3 touchscreen displays that they're going to use throughout the flight, giving them insight into Dragon systems, seeing any alerts or issues with the vehicle, and if required, taking control and manually flying Dragon. We can see Doug Hurley manipulating those displays right now.
And coming up, the crew will do a comm check to make sure that they can hear mission control, and their seats will be rotated into position for launch so that they can see those display panels right in front of them. So now let's check in with John Insprucker for the latest on the health of both vehicles. Over to you, John.
We're at T-minus 2 hours, 36 minutes, 30 seconds in the countdown for the launch of Falcon 9 with Dragon to the space station. The Dragon Launch Ops team has completed their major activities to prepare the spacecraft for the astronauts. Checkouts are complete of major systems, including the escape system. And as you can see, ingress of the astronauts well underway. They're hooking their suits up to the various cabin systems. Right now on Dragon, there are no issues in work. Comm checks will be coming up shortly on the Dragon spacecraft with the crew. We might be able to hear some of that, and we'll bring it to you as it happens. Now currently the Falcon 9 team is preparing for their final checkouts and propellant load. Checkouts are due to begin at T-minus 2 hours. That's when the majority of the launch crew will actually get on console officially in Fire Room 4 at Kennedy Space Center. Currently on Falcon 9, all systems are go. The Air Force Range continues to report no problems with air and sea space clearance. Everything's looking good. Roadblocks are up around the launch pads. The weather forecast continues to be acceptable, but something we're going to watch all the way through. We're not only looking at weather at the launch site, but we are looking around the world. We need to make sure conditions are acceptable if Dragon has to splash down in the Atlantic in case of an escape. We're also monitoring contingency splashdown locations if the crew had to come back to Earth before docking with the space station. Right now, those conditions are getting better as we go through the day. At the launch pad, things continue to be a 60% probability of violating the conditions, or 40% chance if you're an optimist of good weather. But right now, the clock is continuing to count down. All systems are go. We're just inside T-minus 2 hours, 35 minutes.
All right, now as Bob and Doug finish their ingress procedures and get comfortable inside Dragon, we're going to continue to listen for those comm checks. They should be coming up in just a little bit. But right now I'm joined now by SpaceX's Jessica Jensen and Lars Blackmore just to discuss a little bit more about what make Dragon and Falcon 9 a 21st century launch vehicle. So first off, thank you so much for joining me today. Jessica, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Walk me through kind of Dragon's life history and how we got to where we are today.
Sure. So Dragon was designed from scratch 12 years ago by SpaceX. It was designed to carry cargo to and from the International Space Station. And what that means is 12 years ago wasn't that long ago. So we got to use state-of-the-art materials, state-of-the-art, computer processors. So really, Dragon, to start off with, is already a modern advanced spacecraft. But then there's two other parts of it also that really led to commercial crew. One part of it was that we actually were able to man-rate cargo Dragon while it's in the vicinity of the space station and attached to the space station. So that was a huge learning curve for crew. We human-rated a spacecraft for a portion of the mission, and then for crew, you just have to obviously expand it for the whole mission. And then the last part was cargo Dragon has been this amazing test bed for commercial crew. And what that means is we were able to test out like heat shield materials and parachute materials on cargo Dragon before they ever flew on Crew Dragon.
Very cool. And that's just one part of the equation. Lars, walk us through, again, just the flight history of Falcon 9 from the humble beginnings to where we are today.
Well, Falcon 9 first flew almost 10 years ago today. And even though the first version of that rocket couldn't carry humans, the fundamental design was made with that goal in mind. Over the course of 87 launches, we've steadily improved the rocket so that now it has twice the payload to orbit that we started out with. We can land and reuse the first stage in the fairing, and most importantly for today, we have the reliability that we need for humans. Now, what's interesting is that that reliability has come from steady upgrades and almost a decade of flight experience, but it's actually quite hard to prove reliability. This is something that the commercial airline industry has been grappling with for decades. And just like them, we rely on lots and lots of testing. So for instance, if you take the Merlin 1D engine, that has to fly for about 6 minutes continuously to get to orbit. We took one of those and ran it for more than 250 minutes to get the statistical proof of reliability that we need. So it's that testing and lots of analysis that gives us and NASA the confidence that Falcon is ready to fly humans for the first time.
And obviously a lot of additional upgrades, a lot of additional testing had to go just to make sure that both of these vehicles were human rated. So walk us through some of the specific upgrades to Dragon to meet that criteria.
Yep. So the first one's pretty obvious. We had a cargo Dragon. It has lots of cargo cubbies, so we took all of those out, replaced it with astronaut seats, crew displays, and crew controls. But one thing that people may not know is on cargo Dragon, we've actually been flying mice to and from the International Space Station for years. And what that meant was we had to design an environmental control and life support system for Dragon years ago. It provides oxygen, it scrubs carbon dioxide, and among other things, it controls temperature and relative humidity. So even though that was done on a smaller scale for mice, it was a great learning curve on how to help man-rate a spacecraft when you have to do it for humans.
And then Lars, same question. What kind of specific upgrades had to go into it to certify Falcon 9 for this day?
Well, I already mentioned the reliability upgrades. One upgrade that I think is particularly interesting is the launch abort trigger. So people probably know that Dragon has the ability in mid-flight to separate from Falcon and boost the astronauts away to safety in the case that there's some kind of emergency. And that could be triggered by the astronauts or by the ground crew. What people may not know is that Falcon itself has the ability to cause that trigger. And it will do that entirely autonomously using algorithms, software, and sensors. And that's particularly important in the case of a time-critical fault where aborting quickly means aborting safely. And in some cases, Falcon can do this quicker than 0.3 of a second, so much faster than a human.
And Lars, I'm going to pause right there for a sec. We're getting some comm from the crew. And so coming up shortly, we're going to hear these communication checks. Bob and Doug are going to be talking to several positions down on the ground and they're going to be using both communication speakers inside of Dragon and inside their suits in a series of communications checks. They're also going to be doing these checks over different satellites and ground
CDR,
stations.
PLT, Comm Check, umbilical.
CDR, loud and clear. PLT, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Umbilical, Comm Check complete. Stand by for ground station Comm Check.
And you'll hear him referred to CDR as Doug Hurley, that's the commander, PLT pilot, that's Bob Behnken. And so that first one we heard was through the umbilical, so that communication linked directly into their suit. Now they're going to do a communication check over the ground stations. We'll also hear one over TDRS, that's the tracking and data relay satellites. Same satellites we use to talk to the International Space Station, that's what we'll be using to talk and track Dragon throughout its entire flight. So again, just waiting for a moment for the teams to continue configuring everything. They're going to do these ground checkouts now, and you're going to be hearing them talk directly to the core. It's the crew operations responsible engineer. That's essentially the Capcom if you followed NASA missions in the past. It's a position right here in Hawthorne at SpaceX Mission Control, which is just a few feet away from us, where the team's going to be watching over Bob and Doug for their entire flight. That's where the main person whose job it is to talk to them is going to be sitting. We'll also hear them do some checkouts with the launch director down there at the Cape inside firing room 4. And you'll be hearing those very characteristic beeps.
Dragon SpaceX, Comm Check.
SpaceX Dragon, weak but readable.
Copy, we have you the same. Stand by, we're still configuring for ground station Comm Check.
Dragon copy.
And just to further explain some of those voice protocols that you're going to hear, you might be used to hearing Houston Station or Houston Shuttle or Houston Endeavor back when we were flying those specific shuttles. You're going to hear SpaceX Dragon. That's the SpaceX team calling the Dragon team on orbit. And then Bob and Doug will be able to respond. And so they're going to continue to configure. We'll get these ground station checkouts momentarily. And just a reminder, you're going to hear that very unique beeping sound. That's called a quindar, and that's been something that's been used throughout space-to-ground or air-to-ground communications throughout spaceflight history, and that's really just for teams who are in mission control or supporting a launch know when you hear that sound, it's time to listen.
Dragon SpaceX, Comm Check, ground station.
Dragon has it loud and clear, much better, Jay.
And Core, loud and clear. Ground station Comm Check complete. Stand by for TDRS Comm Check. Dragon SpaceX, Comm Check, TDRS.
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. TDRS Comm Check complete. Stand by for checks with MD, LD in the launch configuration.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1, Comm Check.
Jason, we've got you loud and clear. How you doing?
Doing great. How you guys doing in there? Stand by for comm checks.
Great day to launch a spaceship.
Agree. And stand by for comm checks over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground, comm check.
Loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, launch director on countdown 1. Comm check.
Mike, we've got you loud and clear. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Let me try on Dragon to ground 1. Dragon, SpaceX launch director on Dragon to ground 1. Comm check.
Loud and clear.
Have you the same?
Dragon SpaceX, launch configuration comm checks are complete. Report when ready for seat rotation per section 2 of 4.100.
SpaceX Dragon, we're ready for seat rotation.
Copy, ready for seat rotation. We will report when initiating.
All right, so that wraps up those communications checks. Everything going good with the spacecraft. Bob and Doug talking to the teams on the ground. Pretty soon they're going to get their seats rotated. Bringing you back inside Hawthorne real quick, I do want to thank Jessica and Lars for joining me real quick, giving us that great insight into Dragon and Falcon 9. Hope you guys got a good spot staked out to watch the launch today. It's great to have you on.
Absolutely.
All right.
Excited.
So we're going to throw it now down to Gary Jordan at Mission Control Houston, who I know is also following along. Over to you, Gary.
Thanks, Dan. Great to hear good checks from Bob and Doug in the Dragon vehicle. Here in Mission Control Houston, Flight Director Zeb Scoville has pulled space station flight controllers, and all systems are go for launch. Essentially, the station is prepared for Dragon to arrive 19 hours after launch. Flight controllers here will continue to monitor the countdown, but really it's up to the teams in Kennedy and Hawthorne to get us to liftoff at this point. So we want to hear your comments as we continue to count down to launch. So let's go to the social desk now. Tahira.
Thanks, Gary. So taking a quick look at those numbers right now, there are now 1 million people watching our coverage, and Launch America is up to the #1 trending hashtag on Twitter. So let's take a closer look at what's being said online. Okay, so right now we have Art Alexandria, and it looks like she's got a personal self-portrait, cosmic for sure, in her NASA flight suit. And guys, this is what I'm loving seeing online with this hashtag, is how everyone around the nation is making this launch uniquely theirs. And I want to point out one line in her post that says, "I believe that no matter how far the future is, we are on our way towards it." And guys, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's what today represents. Let's take another look. Oh my goodness. Okay, so right now we have Jessica with her space pup getting ready for liftoff. And guys, I'm not gonna lie, we love to see it. So please, if you have any space pets, comment using hashtag LaunchAmerica. As you can see, everybody is thrilled to be a part of this launch today, and I know of one special guest in particular. I'm so pleased to welcome Diana Cohort of Physics Girl. Diana, I hear you have a burning question for Mission Control, so go for it.
Hi, Tahira. Thank you so much for including me on this incredibly special day. I'm Diana from the YouTube channel Physics Girl, and I've always been so fascinated by space and especially space exploration because we bring together so many people for such a complicated task to send a rocket up into space. So my question is along the lines of what goes into a mission like that? What we all know, I think we're familiar with how much preparation and training astronauts have to do, but preparing for a mission like this, and maybe preparing in the future for a mission to the moon or to Mars, what kinds of things does the whole team have to do in order to prepare to launch a rocket?
So Diana, that is such a great question because, I mean, sometimes I think it does get overlooked what all goes into making a moment like this happen. So Gary, what has the team there in Mission Control been doing to prepare for this historic launch?
Thanks, Tahira. And Diana, that's a fantastic question. Really, the operations here are not just starting today. There has been a lot of training and a lot of simulations that have been going into preparing for this moment. Really preparing and getting everyone familiarized with every step of the mission, from launch all the way through docking, and throwing different scenarios at them just in case something were to happen Every flight controller you see behind me will be prepared to respond effectively. Now, I do want to make a shout out that it's not just the flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston that have dedicated so much time to this launch. In fact, I've been talking to Zeb Scoville, the flight director here in Mission Control Houston, who said that even before he was a flight director back in 2014, they were working on some of the operations for commercial crew missions. But really, this team expands across the country. You've already seen a lot of people working in Hawthorne, in Florida, in Houston, and really it takes an integrated and dedicated team to make a mission like this possible. Diana, thank you so much for the question. And really thanks to everyone sending in questions and for sharing in this historic mission today. Remember, as you're posting, to use the hashtag #LaunchAmerica. I do want to make a shout out to the flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston. In fact, some traditional flowers have been sent to Mission Control Houston. This dates even back before the shuttle days for every mission to dedicate it to the operations and the controllers here who are working so closely and are integrated in every part of the mission. But now let's head over to Hawthorne for the latest status on the crew and on Dragon. Dan.
All right, thank you, Gary. As you can see, Bob and Doug in a little bit different position now. Their suits have been rotated to the launch position. So this just puts their backs a little bit more horizontal with the ground itself, or parallel with the ground itself, and places those displays directly in front of them. We've also already moved into suit leak checks, so this is the second time they've had these leak checks done in their suit. So pressurized nitrox now flowing into those launch and entry suits that they're going to be wearing throughout the dynamic phases of this mission. So right now we are under 2 hours and 20 minutes from launch. We're about 2 hours and 18 minutes and counting from liftoff of the Falcon 9 from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It's going to be carrying our NASA crew members today, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, aboard SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft. It's been a really exciting day so far. We're fighting against that weather, but we're continuing to press on for launch. The crew has been up since about 6 a.m. as they prepare to head to the International Space Station for part of this Demo 2 mission for NASA.
Yeah, and as you can see on your screen, it looks like they're just waiting and getting ready for this mission today. It's been such an exciting day so far. Again, as Dan said, their seats are rotated into launch position so that they can see those screens that you see there on the left side right in front of them. Their suit leak checks have been complete. Their comm checks are complete. So let's throw it over to Lauren in KSC.
All right, so Dragon hatch close is expected at T-1 hour and 55 minutes, and we are just pretty close to that. It's getting really, really close. So this is one of the the final key visual milestones on that timeline to lift off, the closure of that hatch and locking Bob and Doug inside. Now, we have a couple of special guests joining us with Daryl at the OSB-2 viewing location. That's NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine and SpaceX Chief Engineer Elon Musk. Daryl?
That's right, Lauren. We're here on the 5th floor. We were supposed to be outside on the balcony overlooking pad 39A, but we have come indoors due to the weather. But we are here with two titans of space. And though it might look like this is a reunion of a 90s boy band, it is not. We are socially distanced for good reason. But we are here to talk about space. And I want to thank you both and tell you both it's a privilege and honor to be with you today. We're going to start off with you, Jim, and ask you a couple questions here. I want to ask you, first of all, it's been almost 3 years that you were sworn in as NASA Administrator, and you knew from the very first day that you would be right here at the Kennedy Space Center in this moment when a commercial partner was ready to launch. Tell me what it's like to be leading NASA at this very moment.
So I want to be clear. I did not know that when I got sworn in. I will tell you, a lot of folks said it couldn't be done. But of course, as soon as I got the job, Elon and I have had a number of conversations. Elon committed that this was something that SpaceX could achieve. We've had challenges. We've had setbacks. We've seen catastrophic losses of capsules and challenges with parachutes. What's that? On the ground. On the ground, uncrewed. I want to be really clear. Tests. But that's what's unique about SpaceX. SpaceX can do things that NASA historically has not done. They test, they fail, they fix, they fly, they test, they fail, they fix, they fly, until the point where we are today. where not only is SpaceX comfortable, but NASA is comfortable. We are ready to go. But if you would have told me even 2 years ago we'd be right here, I might have even been questioning it then. But this is a monumental achievement. It's a Herculean task by the SpaceX team, which we're very grateful for, and also by the NASA team that has been working hand in glove with them to get to this point.
And it's good we have Jim and Elon both here to fact check each other, so that's good. Thank you for that. Elon, in 2002, when you started SpaceX, many in the aerospace industry didn't take SpaceX seriously. You remember what that felt like. Yet here you are, you just sent 2 astronauts in a car made by your car company to launch pad 39A with a spacecraft made by your space company. And now they're launching the International Space Station. So I'm wondering for you, in this moment, do you just pinch yourself thinking, is this really happening?
This is a dream come true, I think, for me and everyone at SpaceX. This is not something that I ever thought would actually happen. So when starting SpaceX in 2002, I really did not think this day would occur. I expected 90% chance we'd fail to even get to low Earth orbit with a small rocket. So if somebody told me in 2002 that I'd be standing here with the NASA administrator, meeting the astronauts, and we've got a rocket and spacecraft on pad 39A, the best pad in the world, which is, it's an honor to be there, I would have thought, man, I don't know what you're smoking, but it's not. like no way is that true. You know, and so it is. Say it's even a dream come true. I didn't even dream that this would come true. Let it that way. You know, but it is. I am incredibly excited to be here on behalf of the SpaceX team. And as Jim said, this really is the culmination of an incredible amount of work by the SpaceX team, by NASA, and by a number of other partners in the process of making this happen. It's really, you can look at this as the result of 100,000 people, roughly, when you add up all suppliers and everyone working incredibly hard to make this day happen. So it's really hard to believe that this is real.
And you're here, and it's amazing, and many of us have been amazed as we've watched you accomplish these things over the years. Jim, back to you. This is all about the commercialization of space. And so in the early going for Commercial Crew Program, it wasn't something NASA was used to. You know, Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Shuttle, NASA gave the designs and the contractors went out there and built it. This is different.
It is.
They're building it now. What were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome to get to this point?
Well, I think getting people to recognize that when the government provides both the demand and the supply, you're limited in what you're able to do. And of course, back when this program was initiated under Charlie Bolden, General Charlie Bolden, astronaut Charlie Bolden, Congress was not supportive and did not provide the proper funding. And yet he persevered, he pushed forward. And now I think everybody recognizes we have to commercialize space. We've had success now with commercial resupply of the International Space Station. Now we've got commercial crew to the International Space Station. Eventually we need commercial space stations. So what we're using the International Space Station for right now, we're proving that we can compound pharmaceuticals in a way that you cannot do on Earth. We're able to create immunizations in a way you cannot do on Earth. We're printing human organs in 3D. Right now it's just tissue, but eventually we're going to print human organs in 3D using adult stem cells, your skin cells, your own DNA. It's going to transform how we do medicine here on Earth. We're creating advanced materials that you can only create in the microgravity of space, things like an artificial retina for the human eye. So if you have macular degeneration, you don't have to lose your eyesight. Bottom line is this: these markets are the future. And when they materialize, and they are materializing because of the work of NASA, we're going to see capital investment, not just into launch, but also into habitation. And that ultimately is what's going to be transformational for commercial space.
Very good. And Elon, in getting all of that going, the ISS and all the activity that takes place on board, it's key that this Crew Dragon operate on a regular basis. As the chief engineer, what were some of the biggest hurdles you had to overcome to get your spacecraft ready to fly this mission?
Well, the spacecraft and the rocket have gone through literally thousands and thousands of tests and reviews, both by SpaceX, by NASA, by third parties. We've also, as Jim was alluding to, we've done a lot of flights. So one of the things I think that's very helpful about this flight, about what we're about to do, is that the rocket has flown many times. In fact, even in this, essentially this configuration, it's flown about 20 times. So that means we really have, I don't want to tempt fate, but a well-proven rocket. And we've flown Crew Dragon to the space station once successfully and brought it back. We've done a tremendous amount of testing on the ground, and when you do the testing on the ground, you always push the limits. So you want to try, you push it way beyond what you'd expect in flight. So sometimes you'd break it because you kind of want to break it on the ground during testing to see what the limits are. So this is a result, like I said, of thousands of tests, of thousands of design hours, and a tremendous number of smart people working incredibly hard to make this day happen.
And you've got 2 astronauts on board now.
Yes.
Do you feel that responsibility?
Yes, absolutely. I felt it, I think, most strongly when I saw their family just before coming here.
And did you say anything that you can share?
So we've done everything we can to make sure your dad's come back okay.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Jim, you had some words with the astronauts. What was your take on how they were feeling?
I will tell you, Doug Hurley, Marine Corps test pilot, of course, veteran of multiple space shuttle missions. Bob Behnken, flight test engineer, United States Air Force, again, veteran of multiple space shuttle missions. This is not new to these guys. All I could do is convey to them how much all of America appreciates what they're doing, that the entire world is watching, and just how grateful we are as a nation. And I will tell you, their demeanor is loose. They are ready to go. They were joking around. They're talking about what they had for breakfast and how it might come up later. It was
steak and eggs. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Right. So it was nice to see. They are in their element, and we are just so grateful and proud of them.
Well, that's good to hear. That gives you great confidence, I'm sure, in your positions as you hear that. We're going to go to a social media question, and we've got this question coming from Brooklyn. And she wants to know, I noticed some changes in the crew spacesuits. They look much thinner and lighter. What changes in the space capsule allow to have these futuristic suits?
Well, we spent a lot of time designing the spacesuit. I personally spent a lot of time on the spacesuits. It took us 3, almost 4 years to design suits that both look good and work well. So you can see a spacesuit in the movie, looks good, doesn't work. and then you can make a spacesuit that works but then doesn't look good. Because fundamentally it's a pressure suit that's got to survive in vacuum.
Right.
So it's so it tends to puff up, when it's under pressure, and it's got to handle all that pressure. So it took us many iterations to get the suit to. We really want it to look great. Fundamentally, what it's about is like we want to inspire kids to say that one day they want to wear that uniform, they want to wear that spacesuit, and get them fired up about, I want to be an astronaut. I want to work on aerospace engineering. I want to advance space flight. And I think what today is about is reigniting the dream of space, and getting people fired up about the future and excited. It's just one of those things that I think everyone. From all walks of life, from all parts of the political spectrum, in the United States and elsewhere, should be really excited that this is a thing that is made by humans, for humans, and it's just a great, exciting, inspiring day, and it's one of those, like I said, one of those things that makes you glad to wake up in the morning.
Yeah. Functional and inspiring. And there's one on a model right over there, and you got me so excited. I might run over there and put that thing on, Elon.
Yeah. They're custom tailored, by the way.
They are.
I think you won't fit in that one, but we could make one that you would fit in.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, because I'm 6'8", so you're gonna have to do a lot of sewing.
Well, and the Dragon Spacecraft can take someone who's 6'8".
My size.
Yes.
This commercial thing, I'm getting excited.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm ready to fly, Jim.
Yeah.
Sir.
We've got another social media question we're going to ask. Ashton J wants to know, how do you think that launching astronauts on American soil for the first time since 2011 will revolutionize future missions?
Yeah, so what we're doing here is unlike anything we've ever done before. We are not purchasing, owning, and operating the hardware. We are turning to commercial industry. And going back to the spacesuits, it's the same for the capsule, it's the same for the rocket. We did not tell industry what to build. We gave them top-level requirements. We said, here's the requirement for payload. Here's the requirement for safety. And then we let the innovators, commercial industry, American commercial industry, innovate. And they came up with solutions that had never been dreamed of before. And that's the success of this program. So we're really revolutionizing how we do spaceflight. And I really think when we look into the future, we're going to see these models of doing business with public-private partnerships apply not just to low Earth orbit, which is what we're doing today, but we're taking this model to the moon and even onto Mars.
And I hear something about Tom Cruise shooting a movie at the International Space Station. Is that right?
I'll tell you what I told Elon just yesterday, and that is this. People ask me about Tom Cruise all the time now, and the answer is yes. We would love Tom Cruise to fly to the International Space Station and make a movie. I'm all for that, and we're going to do what we can to make that happen. But you should know this. There was a day when I was in elementary school, and I saw the movie Top Gun. And from that day, I knew that I was going to be a Navy pilot. It's just the way it was. The goal here, and this is what we're doing today.
Exactly.
And Elon is all about this.
Get the kids fired up about wanting to wear that spacesuit,
That's exactly
wanting to fly that, go to orbit, go to the moon, go to Mars, reigniting the dream of space, and just getting, people of all walks of life, young, old, excited about the future. Excited. I think anyone who has within them the spirit of exploration should love what's going on today.
And if we can get Tom Cruise to inspire an elementary kid to join the Navy and be a pilot, why can't we get Tom Cruise to inspire the next Elon Musk? That's what we need. We need a new generation of many Elon Musks, and that's what this launch is about today. I want to say, speaking of this inspiration piece, it's not by chance that we have the Secretary of Education of the United States of America here. This is all about the next generation. If we have great success in our generation, it's not enough. It has to continue. The challenge with the Apollo program is that it ended. What we're doing now is sustainable, and that's why we have the public-private partnerships and commercial capabilities that are coming online.
Very good. And the good news for Tom Cruise is he does a lot of his own stunts.
Yeah.
So in zero gravity, he should get hurt a lot less.
I think it's going to be super cool.
Yeah.
And as Joe said, it's like this is going to, you want to capture the public imagination, have them see cool things happening in real orbit, real space stations. It's like I think I'd want to watch that movie.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, you think it was like this is really just the beginning, because we want to go from low Earth orbit. We want to go back to the moon, and the moon to stay. Have a moon base like Moon Base Alpha, and have build a city on Mars and be a spacefaring civilization out there among the stars. This is a super exciting future that I think that's the kind of thing where you're like, can't wait for it to happen.
If you can't get excited after listening to you guys, I'd say you need to have your pulse checked.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, SpaceX CEO and Chief Engineer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jim Bridenstine, we appreciate you leading NASA in this time, Administrator for the agency. And we're going to send it back to Marie.
All right, thanks a lot, Daryl. We saw in the meantime, while that interview was going on, the hatch actually closed. So that happened a few minutes earlier than we expected to. Our timeline has that happening at T-minus an hour and 55 minutes. So a few minutes ahead of schedule right now with hatch close. And you can see the pad teams there just working on things now.
Yeah, right now it looks like what they're doing is, what are they doing? So they perform a leak check. There's a mechanism there called a side hatch mechanism. That is what actually closes the hatch and seals it. And what we'll do is perform a leak check on that for a few minutes to make sure that that's nice and tight, that those O-rings are sealed really, really well. And after that, we will install the, you can see the leak check ground support equipment there in the technician's hands there.
And while we're watching this, Leland, I mean, we just heard them talk a lot about inspiring the next generation. And you're a man of many talents. I know after your flights yourself, you used to head the head of NASA education. I mean, what did that stir up in you?
Marie, what Elon said about reigniting the dream of space is so important, that we get our young kids thinking about themselves being in these seats. And when I first became an astronaut in 1998, I was riding on the back of a fire truck celebrating John Glenn's return to flight on a space shuttle. And I saw these two little kids. They had on orange pumpkin suits, and when their dad turned them around to point to look at me on the fire truck, and it was almost as though when they saw my face, they started launching into space with rocket fuel because they were inspired, because they saw someone who looked like them. And I think that if we can reignite this dream through SpaceX's launch, through the partnership with NASA, we can get so many more kids to believe in themselves and know that they can be just like Doug and Bob flying on the SpaceX Dragon.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really just breathtaking to see them there in their suits now and looking at the screens in front of them. Lauren, I know we've talked a lot about the spacecraft. We've heard about that, but for folks that maybe are just tuning in, what are they looking at in front of them now?
Yeah, so they have 3 different touch screens in front of them. Overall, that whole assembly there is called the control panel. So you'll have those 3 LCD touch screens in front of them where they have, the displays are showing them details on the vehicle's pressure, its temperature, there's audio control. That center screen has the procedures that they're going through today on day of launch. You can also see the vehicle's attitude. You can see its velocity, its apogee, its perigee, its inclination, details on the status of the hatch, the thermal control system loops, basically all the cool stuff that helps them have situational awareness of the vehicle. That's displayed on those displays. Additionally, there are some actual buttons on that button panel that you see down below. And some of the things that allow them to do is if the crew ever needed to do any sort of manual overrides like that right in the middle, right underneath that center LCD screen, that's the crew's ability to initiate an abort. It's called an abort handle, and it's right in the middle where both crew members could use it if they needed to. And the audio controls are also on those button panels. When they're not in their suits, there's actually speakers that are coming off of the control panel that allow them to hear mission control, hear the core, hear ISS, when they're not in their suits where the audio systems are integrated into that.
And we see them using the touch screens now. Leland, what's your take on this? Because this has got to look totally different from what you were looking at during shuttle.
Touch screens. I mean, we had these displays and these buttons, and it was one of those moments when I'm looking at this now when I had knee boards that had procedures and things on there, and the procedures are now all run in that middle screen, and the malfunctions and the things that you do to mitigate problems with the vehicle if something happens, it's all controlled right there with the 2 of them. And so it's a radical departure from what we did with the shuttle, but it's again ushering in this new era of space travel.